Good evening, everybody. I'm Derek Michaud, and it is time to go Flush in the Pocket, presented by Brunswick Bowling, sponsored by Just in Time Recreation. Check them out at justintimebowl.com. I'm kind of a little bit of a fanboy of this one because the guy that's in the studio, I've known him for quite a few years, and he actually bowled on the 1993 AC Delco Classic, which is on YouTube. Finished fifth, but did a great job. Now he is the one of the director of research and development at Brunswick. Billy Orlikowski, man, how are you?
Great, Derek. How you doing?
I am awesome. Did I get anything wrong with your title with Brunswick or anything like that?
Yeah, so I've been promoted to director of product development. So
Sure.
what that encompasses is all the R&D plus all the product managers and core engineers. All that reports to me under one umbrella, along with the ball plant.
Okay.
So a lot of a lot of moving pieces and parts there for all the bowling balls.
So when did you get promoted to that position?
About 4 years ago. So
Nice.
yeah.
That is awesome. All right. So how did you get started bowling, Billy?
How did I get started bowling? Well, it kind of goes all the way back to, now I'm not this old, but 1953. And that's when my grandparents built a bowling center in Grand Rapids in my hometown called Click Lanes. So with that, I started bowling as soon as I could walk.
Oh, okay. So who coached you?
Yeah. So back in the day, of course, when we're that young, it's always somebody close to us and dear, and that was my mom. So she was my first coach, and then there was a local legend, Bill Stanfield. He owned a pro shop, and he was one of the local legends there in Grand Rapids. He was coached by Marion Ladwig, and a few other great bowlers back in the day. And then when I was out on tour, I always got a lot of useful tips and help from Charlie Tapp, Don Gianello, Gary Dickinson, just to name a few. I mean, I was one of those practice holics that I was always out there practicing.
There you go.
Yeah.
How old were you when you got your first bowling ball, and what was it?
Yeah. So funny story here. I was bowling when I was younger. You're 3-4 years old, and they only had 6-pound bowling balls. So most people, used two hands back in the day. So, picture this: little Billy, 1971, 4 years old, two-handed bowling, and just using the little star balls back then. And so what they said to me was, hey, if you want your own bowling ball, you got to go to one hand. And I'm like, but I'm bowling pretty good. I'm almost like averaging 100 two-handed back then. And they said, no, for you to get your first ball, you got to throw it like the big kids do. And they all throw it with one hand. So I always say I could have been the first Jason Belmonte,
Yes. And who said this? Your parents said this? Your coach?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It was all the coaches and the kids. And because they never really had seen anybody throw it with two hands before.
So when you were throwing it with two hands, did you ever thumb in the ball?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
If I could reach it, because some of the star balls, it just depended on which one you would get. And, those lightweight balls back in the day, they, if they were a little off balance, you could get those things to really hook across the lane. Yeah.
How old were you when you started to become a good bowler?
Ooh, good question. Probably, I think growing up in junior leagues, I was always pretty good in our home house. But when I first started getting out and winning tournaments, I was probably about 12 or 13.
Okay. That's good stuff.
Yeah.
What did you accomplish in your bowling life that made you want to try the tour?
Ooh, Yeah. So I was bowling well in scratch tournaments, bowling a lot of action. I'm not sure if a lot of people do that. I know I hear some, there's some action matches every now and then, but not like it used to be. I mean, you used to be able to go to find action in any town,
Mm-hmm.
and was always making some good side money that way. And just thought I would start bowling regionals. And then when I started bowling some regionals, I was cashing and making some match play finals. So I thought, wow, I got to give this even a bigger, try, and kind of try to elevate my game a little bit more. And then um, back in 1989, you used to have, well, even before then, but you used to have these qualifiers for the U.S. Open. You could qualify regionally.
Mm-hmm.
And I was fortunate enough to qualify for the U.S. Open, and I bowled the U.S. Open in 1989 and missed cashing by just a few pins. So that really gave me my first taste, and I thought, man, if I can come out here, bowl against the greatest, and go toe to toe with them, I think I could probably make it out on tour.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Um, how long were you on tour?
So I was on tour for about 9 years. I started in the summer of 1990 and then bowled all the way through to 98,
Oh,
1998.
okay. So, let's see. When did you leave the tour, and why did you leave the tour?
Yeah. So um, one of the things I kind of left the tour after 98. I bowled about 10 tournaments that year.
Mm,
Um, Part of it was I started off and I started bowling the signature events, like the U.S. Open, the Masters,
mm,
um, what else? The touring players, the national championships. And out of that, I bowled out of those 10, I
mm,
cashed out of seven of them. And out
mm,
of the seven, I made the match play five times. I think I finished 10th at the touring players, 13th at the US Open. Um, and then I think at the national championships, I finished like 18th. So some very respectable finishes. And after expenses, after uh, making a chop cut with my sponsors, I
mm,
profited $2,000.
mm,
And I was just kind of shaking my head a little bit, and I really sat back and I looked at, where's the PBA going?
mm,
What's it doing? The Microsoft guys had come in and purchased the PBA.
mm,
We really thought it was going to take off, and the money really wasn't there. They had
mm,
just lost the ABC, Wide World of Sports TV. They lost those
mm,
contracts, and it just really wasn't going anywhere. And come to find out, lo and behold, my wife was pregnant with our first child,
mm,
and I thought, man, I gotta figure something else out to support my family.
mm. So I know because we've known each other for quite a few years, and we were talking back in '02, and you went out and bowled the World Championship. Were you actually was that your kind of way to give the tour another try?
Yeah, I mean, a little bit. I kind of just went out just to test the waters again. But at that time, I had already started at Brunswick full time. And
Mm-hmm.
so I had that consistent paycheck coming in,
Mm-hmm.
and there wasn't that added pressure on me. So I thought, hey, let's give this another try and see how well we can do.
So, okay. So when you're bowling on tour, when you're growing, getting ready to go on tour, were you on a shirt staff, a ball staff, or anything like that?
Oh man, back in the day, they didn't have, they very rarely had, certain staffs.
Mm-hmm.
Um, for me, I was on a shirt staff with Brunswick. And then I'd want to say it was from 93 to 97, I
Mm-hmm.
was on the full staff.
Mm-hmm.
And that paid pretty good, but it was also incentivized.
Mm-hmm.
So the more shows you made, and the more tournaments you won, you got extra money that way.
And if you threw a certain ball, because I mean, I've
Sure.
had Ernie Schlegel on. He says if you threw a certain ball, you made a lot of money with, But okay, so what would you say is your best moment on tour?
Oh, yeah, I would say my best moment was, I think there were two.
Mm-hmm.
That first TV show at
Mm-hmm.
in 1993 at the AC Delco Classic.
Mm-hmm.
That's always super memorable.
Mm-hmm.
But then also, like in my hometown, we had a tour stop in Grand Rapids, and man, I was going toe to toe with Walter Ray for the longest time, and then that last day of match play, I kind of slipped off and fell to seventh, but almost made the TV show in my hometown.
That was that was when let's see, uh, Robert Smith was on that show. So was Bob Learn, Walter Ray, Harry Sellens, and
Yeah, Robert
yeah,
Lawrence, I
right.
think.
Yep. Yeah. Oh, Robert Lawrence. I'm sorry. Robert Lawrence,
Yep.
Walter Ray, Harry Sellens, and Bob Learn. Wow.
Yeah.
Now I mean that had to have been awesome for you to almost make a second show because you only made the one show, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Now I know that, winning or not winning is definitely tough, but what would you say was your worst moment on tour?
Yeah. Huh. Um, I didn't have a lot of bad moments on tour.
Mm-hmm.
I always really took like a positive approach. I always felt like you learn more from your defeats than you do from your winning moments. Um, so I would probably say, there was a rough stretch in 1992 on the winter tour.
Mm-hmm.
They were doing this thing with where they were oiling the lanes. So back in the day, they didn't have the lane machines. They were still oiling with the old bug sprayer.
Yeah.
And they decided what they were trying to do is they wanted to have certain break points. And so what they were doing was they were calling it basketballs. And a lot of people find this funny is they would take like a bucket and they would dip a basketball in it, not all the way through, but just the bottom of it, and drop it around the certain breakpoint areas. And so what it would do is it would lay out these puddles, and it's kind of what some of the Hoagland patterns do with the speed bumps.
Mm-hmm.
But back then it was just a basketball, and I really struggled trying to find or figure out that picture. And I think I missed cash in like 5 out of 6 tournaments or something like that in a row, and it was just it was a struggle.
Yeah. All right. Is there anything about your PBA career that bothers you today?
I don't know. I would probably say, you always wish you could have done more. But when I look back, I was pretty proud of my career. I always felt like I didn't have as much talent as a lot of the other people. And I always just worked my tail off and I practiced, and I would kind of think, well, maybe I didn't practice hard enough. But now as I'm older and I look back and reflect, and I'm like, man, I practiced till my fingers bled,
Right,
kind of like the old Bryan Adams song, Summer of '69, right?
Right, exactly.
But I really worked my butt off, and I'm just kind of proud of my career. I bowled against some of the greatest bowlers that were out there. And, that decade that I was out there, there were so many Hall of Famers. I got to bowl against Dick Weber in match play. I got to bowl against Earl Anthony, Pete Weber, Mark Ross, Johnny Petraglia. I mean, the names are just unbelievable. And, to just sit back and go, man, those guys are like mega Hall of Famers. And for me to, bowl against those guys, it was something.
Yeah. Now, Johnny signed Parker to Brunswick. Did Johnny sign you too?
He did.
He
He
did.
did. Yeah.
Okay.
I owe Johnny my career at Brunswick. So what Johnny did for me, and I tell him this all the time, and he vaguely remembers it. So back in 1991, I'm bowling the Brunswick World Open in Chicago. And previously to that, I had gotten to know Bill Wasserberger, who was the head of R&D and at the time for Brunswick. And he would go to the tour stops and he would bring in the new test balls for Johnny and Mark Roth, Amleto, Randy Peterson, Mark Williams, all those guys to go and test the balls. And so I was just, at the time, I knew Bill, and I was a free agent back then. And, Johnny's watching, and I knew Johnny pretty good. And so we were talking while they were testing balls, and I was, very inquisitive, like, hey, what are you guys working on? And, showed that interest. And when Johnny got done ball testing, he said, to Wasserberger, he's like, hey, Bill, he said, Billy's right in your backyard. Why don't you have him test balls? And Johnny was like, telling Bill, and he's like, man, Billy throws it great. He repeats shots. He, if you need to fine tune a ball or if you need to check something, but it would save Brunswick a lot of time and a lot of money. And so as soon as the that fall tour was over, Bill came to me and he said, hey, you know what? This is a pretty good idea. Would you be interested in testing some bowling balls? And I'm like, sure. What's this entail? But Johnny was the one that got my career started at Brunswick.
That's awesome. I mean, that's really cool. What would you say when you were on tour? What was your favorite stop?
Hard to say.
Okay. Gosh,
there were so many great places. I loved the tour back then, how it was. We, as a group, you had so many friends out there, you traveled together. It was, I kind of relate it to like the circus, we were a traveling family and we would just go town to town and everybody would come out to see the circus. We'd bowl the pro-ams. It's not like today where they don't travel as much. You've got the World Series that kind of sits in a town for, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and people just get tired because, I got to see them, and you go out the next day. Well, they're just bowling again. It's not that whole tournament like the old way the tour was. But I would have to say my favorite town was Tucson, Arizona.
Sure. Pete Townis.
Yeah. And the reason for Tucson was we used to stay at this place called the Tucson National. It was one of the resorts, and this was in the summertime, so it wasn't, during the busy season. So it's, 110, 115 degrees outside. And they used to let us play golf there for $25. However, I always bowled really good there. And I think out of the 7 or 8 years that we bowled there, I think I made the finals almost every time. And so, and so I never really got to take advantage of the golf like the other guys did. But it was always really fun to hang out there. And it was just a great town.
Yeah. Any chance you're going to shoe it up for the World Series this year?
Well, unless they give me the senior exemption.
Okay.
I'm 57 now, so I got no chance.
Okay. All right. Was there a PBA stop that you weren't a fan of because you didn't do as well, or?
Las Vegas, the Showboat Lanes, the famous Showboat Lanes. I pulled there probably, God, I think we bowled there the whole time. And I think I have one check, and that was, it was back in 1992. And I had an Excalibur back in the day, and that was when that Excalibur, the first reactive bowling ball, came out.
Yep.
And I remember this vividly because I bowled with Mark Williams and Amleto were on my pair, and I was hooking it around those guys. And I'm more of a straight player.
Yeah, you are. Yep.
And and I was hooking it around those guys, and they were, Brunswick staffers, and they were stuck still throwing urethane, and they were just, screaming to Wasserberger and Ray Edwards saying, "You got to get us one of these balls, because there's no way Billy should be out hooking me this much." And it just, that city and, Showboat, I don't know what it was there. I could hit the pocket. I just couldn't strike. I tried everything.
Yeah. No. Well, where did the PBA never go that you wish they had gone?
Well, to be honest, I wish I love Maine. I love the whole atmosphere there.
Come on,
I wish we could have went there. The farthest north we got was Hartford, Connecticut.
Listen, man, I've known you a long time. It goes without saying, if you come to Maine, and especially if you come to Portland or Orono, I am buying you dinner. I promise you. That is definitely going to happen.
All right. I love crab legs and lobster.
You have the crab legs. I'll have a burger. I don't want to have to work, and because honestly, this may sound weird, but it's definitely on my bucket list for us to meet, because we've known each other for so long. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. So, yeah.
Was there a PBA rule that you agree with that other people maybe didn't?
For the most part, I really like the PBA when it comes to like the rules and everything that they had in place. I always thought it was, all the rules had the integrity of the players in mind. So I, for the most part, I liked all the rules. Yeah, there wasn't one that I'm like, oh yeah, this is a perfect rule. I mean, I always the tour now, there's some rules that they have, or maybe some formats, and formats really aren't rules, but that I would disagree with. I know they like to have the elite fields, but when you've got like only 64 bowlers in an elite field, you don't really have the locals or the regional players to, fill the field up and to give those bowlers that opportunity. Plus, the bowling center itself, you don't have the crowd that will come in there to watch all the local favorites and the regional pros. And so the place just looks like a ghost town in there. They don't get the spectators that you used to.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree. I wish that if you were good enough to be a pro, you have your card, bowl, you should be able to bowl. Like my heart kind of broke for guys like Randy and Dell and Trabes and all those guys, because they weren't exempt, and Randy's never been exempt. I think it's just, I just didn't agree with it. I guess I see what they were trying to do, but yeah, you got a card, you should be able to bowl. But that's just so you left the tour in 98. What would have happened to you, or what would have had to happen to you in order for you to kind of stay on tour and give it, maybe go into the 2000s? Was it the money?
I would probably say, if I had a little bit more success, if I was making, some more consistent shows, because that would have generated a little bit more side income. Because, if you were throwing, you said it earlier, if you were throwing a ball back then, the incentives that the tour was paying, or the manufacturers were paying, you were getting an extra 10 grand for a specific ball. If you threw it, you'd get $5,000 for wearing a shirt with the logo on it. If you were wearing the wrist guard, that was probably $1,000. Grips were an extra 500. And so that was a lot of extra money back then that probably would have kept me out there a little bit longer.
Sure. Yeah, man. So when you left the tour, what were you doing then? When did you start your role with Brunswick? Like who you are today with Brunswick, when did that start?
Yeah. So officially it started in January 1st, 2001.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I became an official employee. Other than that, up till then, I was just kind of a ball tester that was kind of paid as a contract worker.
Okay. All right. When Brunswick bought the PBA, or no, sorry, when Brunswick was bought EBI in 2020,
Yeah.
what was your reaction to that?
Shocked. We at Brunswick, at the time I was, director of R&D prior to that, but we'd always kind of had discussions. The overall ball market size itself was probably about, maybe 1.8 to 1.9 million balls sold. And our factory could build 1 million balls. Ebonite's factory could build 1 million balls. Storm could probably do about 800,000 balls. And then Motive at the time could probably do maybe 100, 120. So when you add all those up, there's a lot of places that just are under capacity. And so at the time, we were only doing about 500,000. Ebonite was only doing about 500,000. And you wouldn't have the best capacity or efficiency for your plant. So the only one that was really making money at the time was Storm. And they were the only ones that were profitable. The rest of us were just kind of getting by. We'd make a little bit on bag, shoes, and accessories or other things like that. So it was going to happen, unfortunately, either way, whether Ebonite was going to buy us out or buy Storm out, or we were going to buy Ebonite out, or or maybe Storm if they were for sale. But it just happened to be that way. And I kind of knew something was up before the announcement was made, because at the time I was still in charge of the ball plant. So they started asking me some high level questions of, so how fast do you think you could ramp up making, 800,000 balls or 900,000 balls or, 1 million balls? And so, and then also too, just trying to continue the product lines of, Ebonite. How could we, make the Black Widow? If we could show everybody that we can make a Black Widow successfully, that would get all the hammerheads and the people that love hammer, that would let them know, hey, you know what, Brunswick can really do this. And that would give confidence to the consumer. So,
all right. Yeah. So, I mean, if you start now, you might be done by Saturday. 900. You said 900,000 balls. Is that what you said?
Oh, for us? Yeah. We're on pace. We always, we make about 1 million balls a year.
Okay.
So that's, if you want to break it down a little bit, it's 25,000 balls a week, 5,000 balls a day.
All right. So I had Chuck Gardner on recently, and I asked him this question, and I'm going to ask you: Do you have say on who signs with Brunswick and who doesn't, or is that just the reps or whatever, the regional reps? Do you have any say?
So there's a bunch of different levels when it comes to staff. So on the national staff level, that's Brian Graham, who's our vice president of consumer products, and Bugsy Kelly, who's our director of marketing.
Yeah.
Those two guys, alone with, looking at their budget, and then also relying on Dino Castillo and Mike Wolf to really give them the feedback. And then Jason Wojner to give them the feedback of like, hey, I think these players can make an impact.
All right. All
But
right.
yeah, unfortunately for me, I can't be everywhere. I would
No, I
be
get it.
stretched. Yeah, I'd be stretched too thin.
I get it.
They really love what I'm doing with the ball plant, and
Mhm.
and all the R&D work. So they kind of keep me tied up and with the guys in the lab and down at the plant.
All right. But let's have a little bit of fun. Let's just say that
Yeah.
you have say
Okay.
in who goes on staff. What's your Brunswick pro staff fantasy? Past or present? Who would you love to have approach you for a ball contract and that they sign? See what I
Oh,
mean?
so were they ever on Brunswick staff before,
Let's do
or
both. Let's do both ways. Let's do it this way. Never on Brunswick staff, and then do a guy that was or somebody that was on Brunswick staff before that you'd love to see come back.
okay? Wow,
Male, female, whatever.
you're putting me in a tough spot.
Yeah.
Um, so I really love Jason Belmonte. I think he's a great guy.
Yep.
Even though we're on different teams per se.
Mm-hmm.
With me being with Brunswick and him being with Storm,
Yep.
we've always had a really good relationship.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's great for bowling. I love what he does for social media. He's a great guy.
Super.
I love Kyle Troop. I think
Yeah.
Kyle's great. He's doing the right thing. I bowled against Guppy when he was out there, when Guppy was out on tour, when I was out there. And I remember Kyle when he was, maybe 5 years old at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And but he's great. Kyle's great. Another guy he's kind of a quiet assassin is Chris Vi.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
All right.
Those would
Guppy.
probably be my top three there.
Okay. Who was on Brunswick before that is not with you guys that you'd love to see come back?
Gosh. Well, I'd like to see Mark Roth come back, but I don't know if that'll happen.
Well, right.
Right. Yeah, Mark's he's one of my all-time favorites. But yeah, geez, I'm not sure who we would have back. That would be a tough one.
Sure.
Trying to think. Everybody kind of leaves staff for their own reasons. Sometimes it's maybe the grass is greener on the other side, or maybe they for them maybe they get a better contract, or which what, family first. You got to think of your family, and if you can support your family better by getting a better contract, that's one. And I can't believe I didn't think of this one, but I would love to have Tom Smallwood back.
Oh,
Michigan
yes.
native. Yeah.
Yep.
Smalls and I, we have still a great relationship. I know he's with another company, but and he's having a really good year. He should have won that first tournament, but Billy O, the other Billy O, the younger Billy O. Yeah, he wound up beating him. But yeah, I'd love to see him come back.
There you go. So in 97, 98, THQ made Brunswick Circuit Pro Bowling. Did anybody ever come to you and say, what would make this game great? Did you ever have your hand on that at all?
A little bit, but not as much as I did in the 2000s. So in the early 2000s, I had a little bit more. Back then, they were just mainly going to the R&D guys, which was Bill Wasserberger and Ray Edwards.
Sure.
Trying to figure out the ball, the different balls and how they would react. But when they got into the early 2000s, and they were asking me for all the technical aspects of the game and which balls did what. And that was pretty fun working with them.
They need to bring that back. That is my all-time favorite.
Is it?
Video. Oh my gosh. Yes, absolutely 100%. What's going on? What's coming down the pipeline with Brunswick? Can we make any big announcements or anything like that? I mean,
Well, we're always cooking up something new.
mm-hmm.
One of the big things during the acquisition, we tried to keep as many key people as possible from the Ebonite staff. And one of the key people that we got was Randy Teitloff. And Randy Teitloff was the head of R&D at Ebonite. And he is one of the most interesting, knowledgeable, most incredible people I've ever worked with. He's fantastic. He is so smart, to where he understands how to talk at anybody's level so that they understand any of the technology. And he can, talk at such a high level with our chemist at Covestro, and then break it down to somebody simple as me, and then break it down even more when we're sitting at league and we're bowling and he's just talking to one of the competitors next door. He's just great. And he's been a huge part of the team, along with Ray Edwards, who just recently retired a year ago, and then also one of our other R&D guys. And with that, they were the ones that developed the HK22 cover stock, which is, pretty much on a lot of our bowling balls, probably about 70 or 80% of the bowling balls. And that cover stock is just matching up so well, not only on tour, but in league and scratch tournaments, out at nationals. And what we're just getting started to release now, which is our latest innovation, is called HK22 Cohesion. And so that's the next innovation and the next progression to HK22. And what that is that's it's a new cover stock. It's got a different chemical additive to it that helps it traction more in oil. And so what it'll do is it'll start up a little sooner, hook a little quicker, and have a little bit more continuation on the back end. And that's going to be launched in the new Hammer Effect, which comes out March 21st, which is the universal release date.
Okay. How is it decided the price point of a ball? Well, I'm going to spend $50 or I'm going to spend $250. How do you know when you're making a ball? Okay, this is a $300 ball, or this is a spare ball, or whatever. How do you guys know the price points?
Okay. Yeah, so a lot of it depends on the technology that we put into it. So what we'll do is, with 7 brands, we have to plan out so far in advance. We're planning, 9 to 12 months to even farther in advance if it's a unique core design. So what we'll start doing is we'll start building, those brands out, and we'll try to decide how many pro releases do we need to come out with, how many high performance, which is the next level down, how many mid performance balls do we need to come out for each of those brands. And from that's where we decide, okay, what kind of core are we going to put, or engine are we going to put in this placeholder? And then what we do is we decide what cover stock's going to go around and match up best with that core. Okay. And then that's kind of what decides those different price points.
Okay. So, Billy, when was the last time you bowled 300?
Oh, bowled 300. It's been a while. Jeez.
Really?
Yeah, it's, what do I gotta say here? Probably, I bowled one senior state tournament last year. So, yeah, so maybe about 9 months ago.
Okay. What's the closest to 900 you've come? You remember?
Yeah, my closest I've come is 858.
Oh, okay. I ask you this because when I created this podcast, I wanted everybody does 10 frames. I wanted to go flush in the pocket, 12 questions just for fun. It has nothing to do with bowling necessarily, but we're going to go into it. What is your favorite food?
All right. Crab legs and steak.
Do you eat your steak just like everybody else, medium rare or rare?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm a medium rare guy.
All right. All right. Favorite music?
Rock and roll. I like all genres though. Rock and roll. I love my AC/DC.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
What do you do to take your mind off of bowling?
Challenge myself. And one of the most challenging sports I know is golf.
Okay. Are you can you hang with EJ Tackett on the golf course or
heck no.
No, you can say whatever you want. All right.
Yeah.
All right.
EJ has, you've seen him throw a bowling ball, right?
Of course.
You got to see him hit a golf ball. He smashes it.
Oh man. Do you know how many yards or whatever?
Oh God, he can hit it over 300.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So there's a golf course here in Port Charlotte. I think it's 300 yards. Wow. All right. Celebrity you would most like to meet?
I've pretty much met like all my bowling idols.
Okay.
Because I'm for me, I'm not like starstruck by any movie stars or anything like that. It's kind of like, okay. I don't get into too much TV or anything like that. So I would maybe say like Jack Nicklaus or somebody like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I know that you're pretty successful with what you do. Is there a pro bowler that you met in your life that you were like, there's no way I'm ever going to meet this guy before this guy, whoever it is, guy or girl. Is there a pro that you met that you're like, after you met him, like, I finally met this person?
Oh yeah. One of our hometown ambassadors. You can't say enough about her, Marion Ladwig.
Oh, you met her. Wow.
Oh yeah. Yeah. She's just the grace and just the elegance, and the older bowlers were just fantastic. If you've never met, like back in the day, like a Carmen Selvino, a Dick Weber, Earl Anthony, yep. Marion Ladwig goes up there, and then also too some of the lady pros that were out there back in the day, Alita Sill. They were just so genuine, and maybe it was because it was later in their career and I wasn't bowling against them, but they just were great ambassadors to the sport. And we need more people like a Parker Bone or just people like that to promote bowling, and what a great sport it is.
Yeah. And Parker was my pro that I was never going to meet. I just don't think I was ever going to meet him. Oh yeah. And it was funny. I mean, my dad took me to Milford, Connecticut in 99 to watch the US Open, and Parker was going to be there, but he finished 32nd that year. So just didn't pan out. And then in 2013, buddy of mine says, "Oh, Parker is going to be in Portland, Maine on April 6th. So I'm writing a post on Facebook. I'm begging people to, hey, give me a ride. I'll give you gas money or whatever. My buddy Jerry Donna messages me and says, I'll bring you down. I said, I'll tell you what, Jerry, why don't we bowl? I'll pay for your doubles entry. Why don't we bowl doubles? And so he's a great bowler. He's had many 300s. He struggled. I shot 514, and I think I was throwing the Versamax and the Versamax and the Avalanche Pearl. And he was, he struggled, but I met Parker, and I told Parker that I won that tournament because I finally met him.
That's great.
Yeah. And I wrote a post on Facebook. I mean, I write many posts on Facebook trying to get on staff, but I wrote a post trying to get on staff, and he got a hold of it, and he called me and he says, "Listen, I can't put you on staff, but what if I send you a ball and a few shirts?" And I said, "Okay, any ball you want." And I said, "All right." So I got the mastermind, and that ball has since passed away, but
Yeah.
it cracked, but no, that was definitely my favorite memory of Parker. You said you don't watch. Oh no, what was your favorite toy as a child?
Favorite toy as a child? Probably a bowling ball.
Right there with you, buddy.
Yeah.
Right there with you. So my parents had a hallway a little bit, and it wasn't 60 feet long, but it for a little house, it was enough. And I threw the ball like one of those Fisher Price balls, just like a regular ball. And I put a hole in the wall, and they
Oh,
gave me this
geez.
little they gave me this little board and said, "Okay, if you're gonna bowl, put this up against the wall." And I said, "Okay."
Yeah.
What I know you said you don't watch a lot of TV, but what are you binge watching right now?
So yeah, I don't, I don't watch a lot of TV. Like a day for me is, get up early, get to work early,
Mm-hmm.
and then after work of managing everything, I may
Mm-hmm.
go out and practice, or I'll work with Dasha Kovalova. She lives in town with us now,
Mm-hmm.
um, and I'll work out late at night. I come home. It's 7, 8 o'clock. Um, but one show I've been watching is Masters of the Air.
Okay.
So I've been kind of watching that one. That one's pretty good.
Nice. If you were not in the bowling industry, what would you have done for a living?
Probably something in computers. Yeah, my major in college was computer science, so probably would have done something there.
All right. Where is your favorite vacation spot?
Viva la Mexico.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
Mexico.
Yeah.
Yeah, anywhere, whether it's Cabo or Cancun, Riviera Maya, just really like going down there.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's really cool. How often do you get down there?
We I know Robin loves to take my wife Robin. We love to take
Mm-hmm.
vacations, so
Mm-hmm.
because you gotta break it up every now and then. Winters in Michigan got to be like winters in Maine. So if you can
Oh yeah.
kind of like break
That's
them
why
up and get to
that's
the
why
warm, just like you did. You were down in Florida, right?
I'm still in Florida. I'm going back on the 28th.
Hey, there you go.
Yeah. Um, if you could have dinner with three people, living or past, who would they be?
Okay. Um, hmm. So I would probably go. These will be some strange ones for you. Let's go
Okay.
with Albert Einstein,
Sure.
Warren Buffett,
Uh-huh.
and George Washington.
All right. Wow. That's awesome.
Is that How
What
about?
yeah.
Let me ask you this, Derek. Is that from a threesome? There is that the strangest group of three that you've ever heard anybody say?
No, because
No.
you're an intellectual guy.
Okay.
I feel like you're a smart guy. I feel like you're very well read. You kind of have to be to do what you do. You
Yeah.
got to be. You got to. I mean, so no, I don't think
Okay.
that's not out there at all. Um, what was? Oh, okay. If you could own an exotic pet, what would it be?
Um, what's exotic?
A snake, a
Oh,
tiger,
yeah.
alligator, just anything that's not a traditional pet, I guess.
Yeah. Would I have to take care of it?
This is your podcast. You say whatever you want.
Um, well, I wouldn't have anything that could kill me. So no snakes, no tigers. How about would an otter be exotic enough?
Sure.
Okay.
Like I said, this is your podcast. See, let me tell you, when I created this podcast and when I created these questions,
Yeah.
Randy used to do the Miller six pack
Okay.
with the pros, and I kind of got a lot of the questions from that.
Yeah.
What was your favorite sports moment as a fan?
Ooh. Um, so probably watching my daughter win her national championship.
What sport?
Yeah. So she did competitive cheer. Um, and there's nothing like watching your own child
Mm-hmm.
win an event, and seeing just the joy in their face and them just running up to you screaming.
Mm-hmm.
That's got to be the best. I mean, yeah, I cheer for, I cheered for Michigan this year winning their national championship, but my favorite sports of moment will always be there. Yeah, it's just that was an incredible moment.
If you don't mind me asking, how is the family? You got grandkids? You got how's everything going?
Oh, geez, yeah. So I've got one daughter,
Mm-hmm.
and she just made it Facebook official that
Mm-hmm.
she is pregnant with my first grandchild. So yeah,
Congratulations, man. That's awesome.
thanks.
That's
Yeah, we're excited about it. So
no.
Robin though doesn't want to be called grandma.
Mm-hmm.
She wants to be called Nana Birdie or something like that. I'm
Mm-hmm.
I'm okay with, my grandpa O, he was the one that built the bowling center, and
Mm-hmm.
between us and our huge family of all my cousins and everybody, he kept
Mm-hmm.
us all together. I want that moniker of Grandpa O.
Sure. There you go.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let me preface this question by saying this: I've known you for quite a few years. When I remember when I first called Brunswick to try to get help with bowling balls or whatever, she says, "Well, here, let you talk to Bill Orlikowski." I said, "Holy shit, I know the guy. I knew exactly who you were, and I've been a fan, and I consider you one of my best friends, and I'm glad we're talking again. Um,
Thank
I think you're a solid human being. How do you best want to be remembered when you leave this earth?"
you. Oh, geez, we're getting deep here now.
Mm,
That's a good question. Um, if I had to sum it up in one word,
mhm,
I would just say fortunate.
mhm,
Um, I've been very fortunate at where I'm at right now. I've competed against the best in my sport.
mm,
Like I said, I bowled against Dick Weber, Earl, Pete, Walter Ray, Mark Roth, Johnny Petraglia, Parker Bone. All the greats. And now I get to create the best bowling balls in the world for everyone to
mhm,
enjoy.
mm,
Um, and I think I said it before too, Derek. I feel like I had a little bit of talent,
mhm,
but I mixed that with a lot of really hard work and dedication,
mhm.
and was able to kind of get where I was at. And yeah, and hopefully, everybody kind of sees that hard work in everything I do.
All right, cool. That's awesome. Well, that was Flush in the Pocket with Bill Orlikowski. Bill, hang on one second. I want to ask you a question off the air. Our next episode is next Tuesday, the 19th. We got EJ Tackett. He's a pretty damn successful pro.
Yeah.
It's got to be a great episode. So tune in next Tuesday night at 8 o'clock. That was Flush in the Pocket, presented by Brunswick, sponsored by Just in Time Recreation. Check them out at justintimebowl.com. Bill, hang on one second, everybody. You have a good night, and I'll talk to you soon.